2 a.m. You're a 14-year-old, asleep in a bunk bed, surrounded by 199 other girls in a dormitory that was built to hold 100 students. And someone you go to class with, someone whose name is on the same attendance register as yours, has decided tonight is the night she makes her voice heard. She lights a mattress on fire. The emergency door, unfortunately, is locked. By the time the smoke clears, 16 of you are dead, burned. At a school where 2 teachers, allegedly were told this was going to happen. And sadly, they did nothing. This is not a horror movie. That is Utumishi Girls Academy, in Gilgil, Nakuru County. The date is May 28th, 2026, and the question that I cannot get out of my head is not how did this happen? Because Kenya has been asking that question since 2001, and the answer seems to never change. The question that is keeping me, up at night is this. What kind of pain? What kind of desperation? What kind of absolute failure of every adult in the room brings a child to that decision? I'm DY, and this sadly is the Kenyan week that was. Receipts over vibes. Let's talk about fires. Let me give you, the archive, because this is not new. This is not a crisis Kenya discovered last week. This is a receipt that dates back to the year 2001 and even previously. Receipt number 1, Kyanguli High School. The original horror. March 26, 2001, Kyanguli Secondary School, Machakos County. 67 boys die in a dormitory fire. 67. It is the deadliest school arson in Kenya's history, and it begins, receipts of vibes, with a grievance list. The new headmaster demanded unpaid school fees. The Ministry of Education had cancelled KCSE results over cheating. Students felt they had been robbed and ignored. A 16-year-old Form 3 student named Davis Onyango Opio approached a classmate named Felix Mambo Gumbao. He had a plan. They pulled 600 shillings. They bought 15 liters of petrol from Machakos town while their schoolmates watched a sports event. And that night, the dormitory had a padlock on the main door and iron bars on the windows. 67 people, our children, never got out. The 2 students were arraigned, on April 9th, 2001, charged with murder. The trial lasted nearly 2 years. In 2003, the judge resigned. A new judge took over and declared a mistrial in 2006. The case faded from public attention. No conviction, no closure. No conviction, no closure. 67 families, 0 convictions. Receipt number 2, September 2nd, 2017, 2 a.m. The Cabernet dormitory at Moi Girls High School, Nairobi. 10 students die. 51 are injured. And this one should destroy every parent who hears it, because it's not a story about a hardened criminal. It is a story about a 14-year-old Form 1 girl who had hated the school. She hated the toilets. She hated cleaning them. She begged her parents to transfer her. They didn't listen. The school didn't listen. Nobody did. So, at 2 in the morning, 4 days after third term opened, she set the dormitory on fire. Not to kill, because the court would later find that she was trying to force a transfer by burning the building she was trapped in. She was charged with 10 counts of murder. The case ran for 4 years. And in December 2021, Judge Stella Mutuku acquitted her of murder. The court found no malicious intent and convicted her of 10 counts of manslaughter. In February 2022, she was sentenced to 5 years. She was 14 years old. She just wanted to go home. Seat number 3, September 5, 2024. Hillside Endarasha Academy, Nyeri County, 2 a.m. A dormitory housing 156 boys, most of them between 10 and 14 years old, catches fire. 21 children die. The cause was never conclusively established. The official report found the dormitory was designed for far fewer children and that exit doors were dangerously narrow. President Ruto declared 3 days of national mourning. An investigation was announced, and then, as always, Kenya moved on. Then there is receipt number 4, May 28th, 2026. Utumishi Girls Academy Senior School, in Gilgil. A police-sponsored school. Many of these girls are daughters of the law enforcers. The DCI allege that this fire was planned. A group of Form 3 students allegedly smuggled paraffin into school while the matron was absent. Plans for the strike were reportedly hatched over a week before the fire. The actual plan to burn down the school, as some of the suspects have said, was planned a few hours before it happened. And apparently or allegedly, 2 teachers were told. But they did nothing. The emergency exits were locked. 16 girls burnt to death trying to reach a door that should never have been locked. 8 students are in DCI custody. 135 bunk beds in a dormitory. 200 students where 100 was the limit. With an emergency exit that is not automated to open when there's an emergency. These are the receipts. Kyanguli 2001. Steph Joy Limur 2015, Moi Girls 2017, Asumbi Girls 2012, Endarasha 2024, and Utumishi in 2026. And in between, dozens more with smaller death tolls and that never made the international wire. Over 100 school fires were recorded in Kenya in 2024 alone. 100 in a single year. This is not a tragedy. A tragedy is a one-off. It's something that cannot be, foretold. It's something that we do not anticipate. This sounds more like a bad policy. So, let's ask, the why. The fire inside before the fire in the dormitory. Every time a school burns, Kenya has the same conversation. We talk about arson laws. We talk about caning being banned. We talk about social media and moral decay. We blame the parents. We blame the children. We sentence a few of them and call it accountability. But there's a body of research, not opinion, research, that has been telling us for years what is actually happening. A Canadian academic named Dr. Elizabeth Cooper spent years researching Kenya's school fires. Her finding, and I am paraphrasing a peer review conclusion here, is that Kenya's boarding schools carry the direct legacy of colonial structures. They were built by colonial governments and missionaries to assimilate indigenous people. They were designed around control, hierarchy, and the breaking of individual will. And in 2026, many of them still run on the same architecture. I want to, I've been listening to a lot of the conversations that have been taking place. I have a couple of questions that, according to all this, because it still doesn't make a lot of sense. All of us are speaking about the CCTV, and rightfully so. Because why were they there? But the bigger question that I have is if that school, if our high schools have a budget to put CCTVs in dormitories, how comes we don't have budgets for You know, fire suppressant systems. How comes we do not have a budget for automated fire exits in 2026 with everything that is happening? How comes, as much as the government wants to create a task force and the CS of education, I want to ask, when was the last time that the Ministry of Education did an inspection on this particular school and gave them the all clear, with 200 children living in a space or quarters that were built for 100 children? And because those questions that I've asked do not have direct answers, I want us to remember that these children live under the authority for 9 months a year. They have no formal mechanism to raise grievances. They cannot vote for their prefects in many of these schools. They cannot appeal a punishment. They are, as sociologist Irving Goffman described such institutions, total institutions, places where every aspect of life falls under one authority. And Dr. Isaac Muasia of the University of Nairobi put it plainly in his research: many protests in Kenya schools are rooted in psychological distress, repressive policies, and poor infrastructure. And for 1 second, I want you to remember a 2023 KICD report warned that students in boarding schools often feel isolated, overwhelmed, and unheard. And students interviewed by researchers compared their schools to prisons. Yeah, prisons. So when you actually listen to what students say, before and after these fires, the complaints are consistent across 2 decades. Poor quality food, inadequate learning materials, authoritarian management styles, principals who are unaccountable and unquestionable, suspicions about how school fees and budgets are being used, no meaningful counseling, no pathways to be heard. And I know before all of you come at me and go like, DY, but we send these kids to study, but we went through the same thing, and these children are supposed to do the one thing that took them there. We have to be able to ask this hard question as parents, because if we do not tackle it as parents, it's easy to look at the institution and just go like, the government is failing us, and they really are. On this matter, they really, really are. But again, what pathways have you given your children for them to be able to, speak out? For them to question some of these things, for them to come back and tell you, Dad and Mom, I'm not happy in this school, and I need change. And because I feel as though it's not working for me, what have we done as parents? Because you see, in Moi Girls, a girl couldn't get a transfer and nobody listened. In Kyanguli, boys felt their futures had been destroyed by administration they had no power over. In Utumishi, we don't know yet what the full trigger was, but we know plans were made in advance. We know the students had told other students about it, or they had had whispers about this thing taking place, or their discomfort or displeasure. We know 2 teachers were allegedly informed and they sat on it. Whatever those girls were trying to say, they'd been trying to say it for at least some time. And sadly, nobody with authority moved whatever they were saying. Here's something researchers have noted that I think most adults find deeply uncomfortable to accept. From the students' perspective, the fire actually works. When a dormitory burns, students get sent home. They get the respite from the institution. Investigations are launched. Politicians show up. News cameras arrive. The issue, whatever it is, suddenly has an audience it has never had before. And as Dr. Cooper wrote, students have learned that arson works as a tactic to express dissatisfaction and opposition. In Kenyan society, the bigger the impact, the quicker the reaction. These children are not irrationally violent. They're operating with a horrifying tactical logic. When every legitimate channel is closed, no counselor, no appeal, no sympathetic ear, the escalation follows a pattern. And the government's response has consistently been to announce more punishment. Longer sentences, stricter enforcement, which researchers have noted is precisely the wrong answer. Why? Because the threat of punishment is already built into the boarding school environment that produces the desperation in the first place. You sadly cannot punish your way out of a problem caused by too much punishment. And I'm not trying to excuse these kids. I'm not trying to make sense. What I'm trying to do is be as honest and as truthful about what is happening, because I know as much as you know, because you've been in those schools, and I've been in these schools at one point in my life, and I know there's displeasure, there's discomfort, and often than not you have these discussions of having, going on strike. It's not something that is averse. It's just that you and I were lucky that we never pushed the limit that far, and we laugh about it. Later on in life, we look at it and we go like, yeah, we did this. We do not tackle the original problem. And we cannot overemphasize that more punishment cannot be the solution to something that was caused by already punishment that is seen to be out of proportion. Now, let's look at the legal graveyard. What actually happens to, these kids? So let me give you the receipts on accountability, because the narrative in Kenya is always, we will arrest them, we will charge them, justice will be served, and rightfully so. But let's look at what justice has actually looked like in the past. Kyanguli 2001, 2 students charged with murder. Mistrial declared in 2006 after the judge resigned. Case faded, no conviction. Endarasha Boys Secondary School, separate from the 2024 fire, 14 students arrested and charged with murder after a dormitory fire. Justice Jarius Nga acquitted all 14 in October 2020. His judgment reads, and I quote, "The prosecution case failed. Not necessarily because some of the accused persons may be innocent, but because investigations were poorly conducted, and therefore it is not possible for this court to pick the perpetrators of this crime." 14 all acquitted because the police couldn't do a proper job. Moi Girls 2017, 1 student, 14-year-old, charged with 10 counts of murder, found guilty of manslaughter in 2021 after a 4-year trial, sentenced to 5 years in 2022. And this stands as the only conviction in any major Kenya school fire case in the last 20 years. And the sentence was 5 years for 10 deaths. Masinga Boys 2024, 3 students found guilty of arson for dormitory fire on September 6, 2024. Sentenced, but not under murder charges. And now Utumishi in 2026. 8 students in DCI custody. Case pending. Teachers facing disciplinary action. School board dissolved. School board dissolved. 25 years. 67 dead in Kyanguli alone. And the only significant criminal conviction is a manslaughter sentence against a 14-year-old who just wanted a school transfer. That, my friends, is a receipt on justice in Kenya's school fire cases. Arrests? Yes. Charges? Yes. Investigations launched with dramatic press conferences? Absolutely yes. Convictions that hold? Almost none. Because investigations are sloppy. Evidence chains break down. courts take years. And by the time a verdict comes, if it even ever comes, Kenya has moved on to the next fire. The families of the 67 boys from Kyanguli got 117,000 shillings each in a civil settlement from the government for negligence. 117,000 bob. In 2001 money for a dead child. That cannot be justice. That is a receipt of how much a child's life is worth in this system. So now, I need to step out of the journalist mode for a minute, for a few, because I'm a father. I'm a boy dad and a girl dad. And I've been thinking through this story for a few. And there's a question eating at me that I cannot frame as a news segment. I have to just say it, as a parent. I want you to sit with me in two rooms, at least at the same time. Room number one, I am a parent of a victim. My child is in that dormitory. My child is in Utumishi or Moi Girls or Kyanguli. My child went to school. The thing I have sacrificed to pay for, the thing that I believed in as the ladder out of the misery, and someone set it on fire while they slept. And my child didn't come back home. I don't have a body to bury immediately. I have to go to Endarasha sub-county hospital mortuary for DNA testing. I have to wait for science to confirm to me what my heart already knows, that my baby is no more. And I have to go home and explain to their siblings. I have to figure out what to do with the uniform that is still hanging in their wardrobe. I have to walk past their room and close the door, or not even close the door. And I don't know which of these would destroy me less. And somewhere out there, the person who did this is alive. She has a mother. She has a father. She had grievances. Maybe legitimate ones. I don't freaking care. Not right now. Not in this room. I cannot afford to care about that. Not even for a second. Because their children are home and mine is on a cold slab somewhere in a mortuary that I cannot identify them. I need science for them to know that they are mine. Now shift rooms with me, because this is a room I don't think we talk about enough. This is a room Kenya absolutely refuses to sit in. It's 3 a.m. Your phone rings. It's not a number you recognize. A voice tells you that there has been a fire at the school, a dormitory, and there are casualties. You don't finish the sentence. You are already moving. You throw on whatever clothes are closest. You do not even wait for your spouse to finish tying their shoes. You get into the bloody car and drive. It's 74 bloody kilometers to Gilgil, and you don't think about speed limits at this moment. All you know, you are driving on adrenaline and a prayer. Hands tight on the wheel, radio on for news that's already streaming panic. And the only thing running through your head on a loop is please, let her be okay. Please God, let her be okay. You call the school, no answer. You call again, nothing. You try the different lines in the school phone book. all engaged. You call a teacher whose number you saved from the last open day. It rings out. You arrive at the school. You arrive at the school gates. There are police vehicles, ambulances, frantic parents being held back by officers. You push through because you're not standing at any gate right now. You're not accepting for anyone to stand between you and you finding your children. You're looking for that one face. Just one. And then you see her. She's standing with a group of students near the assembly area. Your heart feels some form of relief. She's okay, physically okay, wrapped in a school blanket, face lit by the emergency lights, but she is standing. She's breathing. She is alive. You run to her. You hold her. You don't say anything. And somewhere in that moment, as the smoke is still visible in the air behind you and the red and blue lights sweeping across the compound, you close your eyes and you thank God. You thank your God genuinely because your child is safe. You do what any other parent would have done. You take her home. You drive back in silence because she doesn't talk much and you do not want to push. It's time, you tell yourself. You're just grateful. You stop somewhere perhaps and maybe, like a petrol station, and you buy her a drink, a packet of something to eat because that's what parents do. They feed their children when they do not know what else to do. You get home and you let her sleep. You sit in the living room, too wired, too hot to even rest, watching the news. The death toll climbs to 16 and you shake your head. You feel the pain of each and every one of those families. But you're grateful to God that you're not one of them. You think about how close it was. And again, like clockwork, you thank your God. Atheist or no atheist, believer or not, whether you're agnostic, whatever you are, you thank your God. And then, maybe the next morning, maybe after a few days, your phone rings again. But this time round, it's the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. They're calling to inform you that your daughter has been identified as a person of interest. That preliminary investigations link her to the planning and execution of the fire. That she's one of the 8. And that you need bring her in for questioning. Hear those words clearly. But your brain refuses to process any of them in the right order. Because 3 days ago, you were holding your daughter at the same school gate, thanking God that she was alive. And now the same phone, same hand, same ear is telling you that she didn't just survive the fire, that she helped start it. You look across the room to where she's seated. Maybe she's watching TV. Maybe she's on her phone. She looks exactly the same as she did yesterday. She's your child. She has her mother's eyes or your jaw or whatever feature it is that you always privately love. She is the person you drove through the night, that you woke up in a jiff for. She's a person that you thanked God for being alive. Now 16 other parents are on their way to Naivasha Sub-County Hospital to conduct a DNA test to confirm what their hearts already know. I don't know what you say in that moment. I don't know If you call a lawyer first, or you call your spouse first, or you just sit there on the edge of the sofa with a phone still in your hand and the TV still on, absolutely nothing making sense. I don't know if you confront her immediately or if you wait because some part of you is still terrified of what she will confirm when she opens her mouth. Because this is the room Kenya refuses, absolutely disconnects and completely refuses to sit in. That my daughter or my son is now in a police cell, that the DCI are investigating, that the CS education is on television talking about her, that the country is calling for her head. Her face may be leaked to the media despite laws protecting minors. And that 16 children are dead. I raised this child. I paid her fees. I visited on open days. I sent her to that school because I believed in education, because I believed in the future, because I believed that if I just kept my head down and kept working and kept paying, that my child would be okay. And instead, my child is being charged with 16 counts of murder. Here's a question I want to ask, and I want to ask it honestly, not rhetorically. Would I find the strength to forgive my child? And I want to ask you, as my listener who is a parent, would you find the strength to forgive your child, knowing that she was an accomplice or the ringleader, that she is a girl on the CCTV footage seen lighting and striking up a matchbox, setting it ablaze, lighting up the mattresses while other children are asleep. If my daughter's actions, even if she didn't intend the deaths, even if she was acting out of desperation, even if every adult around her had failed her first, including me, caused 16 of her classmates, her schoolmates, to die in a locked dormitory, could I look at her and say, I still love you? That I still choose you? That you are still my child? That you're everything to me? Honestly, I don't know. I want to tell you that love is unconditional, and parental love transcends everything. And I would find a way. But if I stand, but I'm standing in both rooms right now, and I understand, genuinely understand both parents. The one who lost a child, and the one whose child took a life. And I think the most honest thing I can say as a parent is the weight of what this girl in Utumishi has put on her own parents is almost incomprehensible. She's going to need them. She's going to need them. And this time round, she will need them more than she's ever needed anyone in her life. The question of whether they can be there for her while also carrying the grief of the families whose children never survived is a weight I cannot wish. Can't wish it on anyone, not even on my worst enemies. children. I really am. And that's just the honest truth as DY, as a parent. I am I'm angry, genuinely. When I think about 16 girls in a dormitory who had no idea, who went to bed that night worried about an exam prep or a fight with a friend or a letter from home and never woke up. I'm furious at the ones who planned this. The ones who sat down and whispered to one another, I think this is the only way. And I am also, and I need to sit in this discomfort, deeply troubled by the system that produced the conditions for a child to reach that decision. A child who was at a school run by the cops, a police school that locked its emergency exit. I don't say that to excuse the act. I say it because if we only focus on the child and we never on the system, we will be having this exact same conversation after the next fire. And I promise you, I swear, sadly, there will be a next fire. Because we have this infatuation. We absolutely have the idea of romanticizing and creating committees and doing all these other things around things, but never tackling the original problem. Because I feel, is it time for us to ask the question, are these boarding schools as they are currently constituted still viable? And I know, because I know most of you will come back and tell me, DY, you don't know the pain and the constraint that I have as a parent and how this boarding solves so much because I cannot provide for this child every day. You don't know the cost of living has gone so high that if I can only take them to boarding and they can be fed out there, then perhaps I'll be giving my child the best option out. But as they are currently constituted with the current government system that we have, that honestly prioritizes the president's travel bill over capitation, that prioritizes the idea of our legislators going and getting new cars and all these things and all this transportation at the cost of capitation for schools. I don't know whether this is viable. You can't convince me. We cannot keep losing children at this rate. We cannot have governments running this country and hiding their heads underneath the sand because they always choose the wrong option day in, day out. That the thought that they have, if we put up a committee, if we put up a task force to investigate, that if we put in we enforce stricter rules in these schools, that we're going to get a different outcome before they actually ask what is the root cause. Please, honestly, it has my blood boiling. Because I'm a parent. And as a parent, I do not want to be in either of those two rooms. I do not want to get the call that my daughter, my son is no more, not because of her actions. And neither do I want to be called and told my daughter, my son is a person of interest. Yeah. Hey, yeah, let's try and finish this. Because here's what I want to say to every education cabinet secretary To every school board, every principal, every teacher who received a warning and sat on it, you're not collateral damage in this story. You are a cause. At Utumishi, if it is true that 2 teachers knew, that they knew whether it's a week, a day, or any time in advance, that students were planning a fire or some form of protest, and they made a choice through inaction, through bureaucratic paralysis, through whatever calculus operates in a person who receives such kind of information and files it away. They made a choice not to act. 16 girls are dead because of their choice. And they are as culpable as the 8 girls being held responsible. The school board had a safety manual. They didn't follow it. When was the last time that the government, that the Ministry of Education carried out, and those are the questions that I want us to ask. Someone should tell us. The school principal should be held responsible. When was the last time that safety manual was inspected by the Ministry of Education? When did they get the green light that they were doing things as required, that they kept our kids safe? Because if they had this safety manual and they didn't follow it, then they don't. They are as culpable as the children. Because the dormitory, let's think about the dormitory that had 200 students, which can only hold 100 of them. Think of the emergency doors that are not automated, that do not open. Think of the fact that the school has CCTVs but does not have a fire suppression system. And then you realize that these 16 girls that burnt on that day never had a chance. Because the system from the top, from home, and the schools absolutely failed them. And to think that the government's response is to dissolve the school board, to announce disciplinary actions against teachers, to launch investigation. This is the same response that we had in 2001, in 2017, in 2024, and here we are in 2026, and the locked exits, the overcrowded dormitories, the teachers who do nothing, they are still here. The problem with Kenya's response to school fires is that we keep punishing at the bottom of the system. We keep arresting the children. We keep sentencing the children. We occasionally fire a teacher or 2, and the structural conditions, the underfunding, the lack of proper capitation, the overcrowding, the 0 student representation, the no functional counseling, the authoritarian school cultures, all those conditions receive a press conference and a task force report that collects dust. The National Crime Research Center published a research brief on Kenya's school arson crisis. A government task force under Dr. Naomi Wangai identified the causes years ago: poor food, harsh school rules, no counseling, abdication of parental responsibilities, and the culture of impunity, economic despair. That report exists. The recommendations are not averse. We know them and they exist. But guess what? Our children are still burning. So, I want to close with something I don't say lightly. I believe in accountability. I believe if you plan a fire that kills 16 people, you should face the absolute law, the full force of the law. I do not romanticize what these children did, because you have to remember the dead are dead, that families are shattered. And you know what? That is real and it is irreversible. But I also believe that a society that only punishes the last link in a chain of features is not serious about stopping the chain. Every locked emergency exit is a policy failure. Every overcrowded dormitory is a funding failure. Every student who felt and had for a week before lighting a match is a counseling failure. Every teacher who received a warning and went to sleep is a leadership failure. And every government that chooses to fund the president's luxury and chooses to fund the renovation of state houses but fails to send capitation in time or increase or do proper inspections of these schools is a governmental and leadership failure. And we have the receipts. We've had them since 2001. So the question, the real question, is not who do we arrest this time? The question is, when does Kenya decide that children's lives are worth more than press conferences? To the families of the 16 girls from Utumishi, I empathize with you. I am genuinely sorry. There are no words that meet the size of your loss. And I pray that they rest in peace and that you find solace one way or the other, because I don't know how. To the 8 girls in custody and their parents, I hope you find the grace to face what is ahead. I hope the system that failed the students you went to school with does not also fail you. To the government, you have the receipts. Show us the work. Don't give us another task force and another report. We are tired. To the rest of us who are lucky that this incident has not happened, to the ones that think, I have a lot more money and my child will go to a private school, I hope this is a wake-up call. That there's so many other things, there's so many ways that we as parents are failing our kids. But we need to ask, how can we allow our kids to communicate better with us? When do we listen? When do we scold? When do we even tell them, no, this, my dear, you can slog through or fight through? And when do we go like, yeah, it's okay, if it's not working, come back home? Because until we take ownership, until we make this story not about the other parent, not in the third persona, until it becomes internalized that it could be your child in this predicament, it could be one of the 2 parents in one of those 2 rooms, then nothing will ever change. MDY. This has been the Kenyan week that was. Receipts of vibes, always.